Deebo not there though. It's OTAs. It's optional. Everyone else goes, but Deebo didn't go. I guess I'm not surprised. Bitch, how do you interpret as the Deebo turns?
I'm not surprised by him not showing up. I expected it. I think the issue is that the Deebo Samuel situation kind of reached a climax right before the draft, and then after the draft, I feel like everybody thought things would resume to being good and dandy.
Mhm.
No pun intended towards
Ha!
Andy.
That was good. I liked it.
Thank
Right.
you, thank you. I've
Yeah.
been sitting on that one for a little minute, but yeah, they're not. The Deebo Samuel situation will not, I don't think, be quote unquote rectified until he signs the dotted line, which would be his extension for the 49ers. Until he gets that, I think we're gonna just be sitting pretty. Again, these OTAs are voluntary, so he can attend. He can choose to attend. He doesn't have to. I don't think it's that big of a deal. At the same time, I do think that the further this process goes along and he doesn't sign, my personal opinion, and again, this is just a guess, but just based on how Deebo Samuel has conducted himself this offseason, I think he might not show up to mandatory OTAs and he might maybe continue his holdout until he gets paid. Now, I don't know if that's always the best move. I hate when players hold out and pay the fine. It's like, okay, you can stomach this fine because you're going to get more money later, but why do you want to lose any money? If I was a player personally, I would show up, pick up my check, and then say, "Ooh, my back's hurting. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys, I'm gonna be out
Hey, maybe
until."
he'll do that.
Yeah, and maybe he
Maybe he'll do
will.
that.
Maybe he will. I hope he does.
Although
But
missing minicamp would cost him about $90K. I'm sure he could do that. Send a message.
Grant, you act like 90K is nothing.
Yeah, I know,
I
right?
want
It
every
is a lot.
dollar.
But I just feel like he probably was not. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to minicamp.
Yeah.
It's not nothing, but I don't think he's going to go.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But obviously it is news because we haven't discussed Deebo Samuel basically since basically after the draft when he didn't get traded. And I think again, everybody thought this situation kind of was about to solve itself. But
Right.
Deebo Samuel not showing up to OTAs tells you that, you know, there's still something there.
Right.
And Ian Rappaport, I think in his report even talked about it, that there's still some displeasure. So
Wasn't the narrative after the draft basically like Deebo lost? The Niners gave him a cold dose of reality. They took him down a peg, and he was going to sort of come back with his tail between his legs. That's sort of what Niner fans wanted to believe.
yeah.
He was selling T-shirts saying Deebo is back. He seemed like he was making nice, but I kind of felt like it was clear that this wasn't over, and that although Deebo may have lost that battle, the war wasn't over, and
Yeah.
he's going to make this uncomfortable in the future. Like missing OTAs, that's okay. Missing minicamp though, that's a big story because it's
No, it
mandatory.
is. It is. And I think the big thing is that I think a lot of people believe Debo doesn't have leverage. I think I'm in the minority, and I think you are as well, that Debo does have leverage. The Niners are making a big transition at quarterback. Debo Samuel is the ultimate quarterback security blanket. He makes
Good call.
every quarterback look good. He made a certain quarterback that Grant loves win a game in LA, named Nick Mullins, and he did it
Molly.
basically. Yeah, he did it. It was that game was won on Deebo Samuel's back.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of games were
Every
won
time
on
they beat
Deebo
the Rams,
Samuel's
it's one
back.
on Deebo Samuel's back or Jimmy Ward.
Exactly. Exactly. And so therefore in my and Jimmy Ward, can't forget him. Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
But the point is I think that because of that, I do think that like I've talked about this. I talked about it a month ago, but I despise the narrative that Deebo Samuel is somehow less valuable because Trey Lance has a stronger arm than Garoppolo.
Right.
I think that when you're installing a new quarterback and all of that, like having a player like Deebo Samuel that puts that much pressure on a defense, you know, that has the ability to be the ultimate bailout where okay, offense isn't working. Let's just run a tunnel screen to Deebo. Oh, Deebo took it 50
Right.
yards for a touchdown. Oh, the offense is working now.
Real
And I
quick.
think that's
Oh, sorry. Also, like the fantasy that just because Deebo didn't get traded on draft night, that he was just going to drop his trade demand and come back to the Niners and everything was going to be cool. Like, what happened? He put up one picture of the Niners on his Instagram. I mean, he didn't go to he went to Jeff Darlington before and said, I want to trade. He didn't go to Jeff Darlington and said, I dropped my trade demand. Like, this is still very much real. The Niners are like betting on their ability to fix it over time, but it's not fixed yet.
no, it's not. And this situation, it might not be as quote, I don't know if toxic is the right word, but it might not be as contentious as it once was, because at that point there were reports left, right, center, people speculating. Now that that's died down just a little bit. At the same time, it's not resolved until Deebo Samuel signs. If Deebo Samuel doesn't sign this year, then the Niners have a problem for more than a year, because again, like when you have this new quarterback, again, Trey Lance, no matter how good or how bad he is, he's better with Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
Can we agree on that? If
Of
he's
course,
really
absolutely.
good, he's great with Deebo Samuel. If he's bad, he's pretty good with Deebo Samuel.
Agreed.
But Deebo Samuel makes the job of the quarterback so much easier. He makes this offense a lot easier to run, and he makes life easier for Shanahan. So he does have leverage. The Niners need him. The Niners need Deebo Samuel to win a Super Bowl.
And the last time Kyle spoke about him, he basically made it seem like Deebo was returning his calls. He's like, I haven't talked to him in a while. So the way I read it is probably nothing's changed at that point. Like I'm guessing that Deebo and his agent are just sort of not communicating with the 49ers, and maybe that'll change in a couple of months, but nothing has changed.
For Kittle.
It changed for Kittle. But yeah, I don't think anything's really changed. I don't think Deebo has come back to the Niners with his tail between his legs. I think he's just sort of waiting it out.
And that's the thing with Kittle, right? We can't forget that Kittle's was just not public, but Kittle went through kind of the same thing. The only difference was Kittle showed up to everything, and he put on the face that everything was good and dandy again.
Although although it was 2020. It was 2020.
Yeah,
so he was
it was 2020. So there was the COVID abbreviated offseason, all of that. But if you remember Mike Silver's like report after that, what felt like was like word for word what Kittle's agent Jack Bechtel wanted to put out. He said things were contentious. It was
interim emoji, all that stuff. Yep, it came together right at the end. But and that's what could happen, probably will happen with the 49ers and Deebo. But it just seems like Deebo's much more public with his feelings than George.
Right.
Yeah. But they might have been very similar in their feelings.
Right. That definitely could be. Like Kittle could have showed up because he wanted, something for he wanted to just show up and, have the public perception that he's not upset.
But there were no OTAs. I think there were Zoom meetings. Maybe he went to the Zoom meeting. Maybe Deebo wouldn't have. But still, we don't know what would have happened.
The thing with showing up to Zoom meetings too, and I think you've done it, we've all done it. There's a difference between showing up in Zoom meetings and showing up to Zoom meetings. Like you can show up, camera off, be on your phone.
Was his camera on or off? That's the question.
Yeah. I mean, Kittle seems like the guy the camera would be on. I don't know, but he wants everybody to see his face. But those things I think do need to be taken into account.